Welcome to History Buff. Before we dive into today's untold story, please make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a journey through time. What I'm about to tell you has baffled experts for decades. How could a man who redesigned the entire landscape of Europe, a tactical genius who never lost his nerve, make a series of blunders so catastrophic they erased his empire in a single day? To understand the end, we must understand the beginning. At his height, Napoleon Bonaparte ruled over 70 million people. His word was law from the gates of Lisbon to the outskirts of Moscow. Born on the island of Corsica, he was always an outsider. He was mocked for his accent and his stature, but while others played games, Napoleon studied the great conquerors of old, Alexander, Caesar, and Charlemagne. The French Revolution provided the chaos he needed. In a world where birthright was everything, the revolution whispered a new promise, that merit, not blood, could lead to greatness. His first real break came at Toulon in 1793. By placing his cannons with mathematical precision, he forced the British fleet to flee. At just 24, he was promoted to brigadier general. But here's where it gets interesting. Napoleon wasn't just a soldier, he was a master of propaganda. He knew that to rule, he didn't just need to win battles, he needed to win minds. He portrayed himself as the savior of the revolution, the man who would bring order to the madness. In 1799, he staged a coup and became first consul. The Republic was dead, the era of the individual had begun. In 1804, he did the unthinkable. He invited the Pope to his coronation only to take the crown and place it on his own head. He was now Emperor of the French, answerable to no one but himself. His masterpiece was Austerlitz. Against a superior force of Russians and Austrians, he feigned weakness, drew them into a trap, and shattered their center. It was the perfect victory. His Grande Army became the most feared force in history. They marched faster and fought harder because they believed their leader was invincible. And for a long time, he was. But Napoleon's legacy wasn't just blood and iron. He implemented the Napoleonic Code, a set of laws that still influences legal systems across the globe today. He was building a modern world through ancient conquest. Behind the scenes, his personal life was a battlefield of its own. His obsession with an heir led him to divorce Josephine, the woman he truly loved, to marry Marie-Louise of Austria. Now, pay close attention to what happens next. The very ambition that built his empire was about to become the weight that crushed it. He began to believe his own myth. The beginning of the end started in Russia. In 1812, he led 600,000 men into the heart of the East. But the Russians didn't fight, they retreated, burning everything in their wake. When the Russian winter struck, the Grande Army was caught in a frozen hell. Of the 600,000 who entered, fewer than 100,000 returned. The aura of invincibility was gone forever. Sensing blood in the water, his enemies united. The Sixth Coalition was formed. For the first time, Europe wasn't fighting a French army, they were fighting one man. At the Battle of the Nations in Leipzig, Napoleon was overwhelmed. His genius could not overcome the sheer weight of numbers. He was forced back to the borders of France. In 1814, Paris fell. His own marshals refused to fight on. Napoleon was forced to abdicate, stripped of his title, and sent into exile on the tiny island of Elba. Most men would have accepted their fate. But Napoleon was not most men. From his island prison, he watched as the restored French monarchy failed to win the hearts of the people. In February 1815, he made his move. He escaped Elba with a handful of loyalists and landed on the coast of France. The king sent an army to stop him. This is the part most people don't know. When he faced the 5th Regiment, he stepped forward, opened his coat, and said, "If there is any among you who would kill his emperor, here I am." Not a single shot was fired. Instead, the soldiers wept and joined him. His march to Paris became a triumph. The king fled, and without firing a shot, Napoleon had reclaimed his throne. This was the start of the 100 Days. Fascinating, isn't it? If you're enjoying this, take a quick moment to like the video and subscribe to History Buff to help us tell more stories like this. But Europe would not have it. They declared Napoleon an outlaw, not a head of state, but a common criminal. They mobilized their armies for one final confrontation. The stage was set at a place called Waterloo. It was a small, unremarkable patch of land in Belgium. On June 18, 1815, the fate of the world would be decided here. Opposing him was the Duke of Wellington, a man who had studied Napoleon's tactics for years. Wellington knew he couldn't beat Napoleon in a maneuvering war, so he chose to stand his ground. But here is the twist: Napoleon wasn't himself that day. He was suffering from agonizing health issues that made it difficult for him to even sit on his horse. The master of timing was about to lose his grip. The rain had turned the field into a swamp. Napoleon delayed his attack to let the ground dry, a decision that would prove fatal. Every hour he waited was an hour closer the Prussian army got to the battlefield. The battle was a meat grinder. Napoleon launched wave after wave of infantry and cavalry, but Wellington's lines held. "Hard pounding this, gentlemen," Wellington remarked. "Let's see who will pound the longest." In a final act of desperation, Napoleon sent in his ultimate weapon, the Imperial Guard. These were the elite of the elite, veterans who had never known defeat. But the unthinkable happened. The Guard broke. As the cry of the Guard recoils spread through the French ranks, panic set in. The invincible emperor had lost his last gamble. Now, pay close attention to what happens next. Napoleon fled back to Paris, hoping to raise a new army. But the political tide had turned. He was forced to abdicate for the second and final time. He tried to flee to America, but the British Navy had the ports blockaded. Left with no choice, he surrendered to his greatest enemy, hoping for a gentleman's retirement in England. The British had other plans. They sent him to St. Helena, a volcanic rock in the South Atlantic, thousands of miles from anywhere. This was to be his final prison. Life on St. Helena was a slow death. Napoleon was confined to a damp, rat-infested house, constantly watched by a governor who despised him. He spent his final years fighting a different kind of war, a war for history. He dictated his memoirs, carefully crafting the Napoleonic legend that would live on long after he was gone. But then, his health began to fail rapidly. He suffered from sharp stomach pains and a lingering weakness. In 1821, at the age of 51, the Great Eagle took his last breath. In 1840, his body was returned to France and laid to rest in a magnificent tomb at Les Invalides. Even in death, he returned to the city he had made the center of the world. His impact is everywhere. Every time you drive on the right side of the road, or use the metric system, or benefit from a merit-based civil service, you are living in Napoleon's shadow. Was he a visionary who liberated Europe from the shackles of feudalism, or a megalomaniac who sacrificed millions of lives for his own glory? The debate still rages today. He once said, "There are only two powers in the world, the sword and the spirit." In the long run, the sword is always defeated by the spirit. Yet, he lived by the sword until it broke in his hand. His story is the ultimate tragedy of the human condition, that even the most brilliant mind cannot overcome the limits of time and the weight of its own ego. From the streets of Corsica to the throne of an empire, and finally to a lonely grave, Napoleon's life reminds us that greatness is a double-edged sword. His final stand at Waterloo wasn't just a military defeat, it was the end of an era that changed the world forever. What do you think really happened? Was it the rain at Waterloo, his failing health, or was he simply destined to fall? What's your theory? Drop it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please like this video and subscribe to History Buff for more content. See you in the next chapter of our journey.